You won't believe what happened when my HOA decided to just hand over my private lake access to her boyfriend without even asking me. It started as a quiet neighborhood dispute, but things quickly spiraled into something I never expected. Imagine waking up one day to find the place you've enjoyed for years suddenly off limits. All because the HOA president decided to play favorites. I felt completely blindsided and powerless. The worst part. When I confronted her, instead of fixing the problem, she called the cops on me, making it seem like I was the troublemaker. This wasn't just about a patch of water or a gate. It was about respect, fairness, and standing up for what's right. When people in power try to push you out, I knew I had to do something to protect what's mine, but I also wanted to make sure no one else could pull a stunt like this again. That's when I came up with a plan, something bold, and yes, a little bit fierce. I built a spiked gate that not only stopped them in their tracks, but sent a clear message. I'm not backing down. But here's where it gets intense. The HOA wasn't ready to let this go quietly. With the cops already involved and tensions running high, it felt like a ticking time bomb. Would this new gate really keep them out? Or would it just escalate everything? I'm going to share all the details, the drama, the confrontations, and what happened next, because this story is far from over. If you've ever felt pushed around by neighborhood politics or people abusing their power, you're going to want to hear this. Stick around, because what comes next might surprise you. The whole situation started months before things got out of hand. Our neighborhood has always been peaceful, and the lake access was one of the best perks we had. Everyone could enjoy it freely, swim, fish, or just relax by the water. But that all changed when the HOA president, the person who's supposed to keep things fair, started making decisions that only seemed to benefit her and her inner circle. I never thought it would come to a point where she'd just give away access like it was some kind of gift, but that's exactly what happened. I remember the day I found out. I showed up at the lake, as usual, only to see a new private property sign with someone else's name on it. It was her boyfriend's name. Suddenly, the gate that used to be open for all of us was locked tight. I reached out to the HOA board, hoping for a quick explanation or some kind of compromise. Instead, I got silence at first, then a defensive attitude from the president. When I pressed her, she acted like I was the one causing trouble, and that's when she called the cops. They showed up not because I was breaking any laws, but because she painted me as a threat. That moment was a turning point. I realized this wasn't just about the lake anymore. It was about control and power, about how some people use their positions to push others out. I started digging into HOA rules and our neighborhood bylaws. It turns out she didn't have the authority to make that decision on her own. But even with that knowledge, fighting back wasn't going to be easy. That's why I decided to take matters into my own hands with the gate. I wanted something that would physically stop them from barging in and taking over my property again. But the whole neighborhood was buzzing. Some people sided with me, others with the HOA president, and the tension kept rising. The cops were watching, neighbors whispering, and the question hanging in the air: what would happen next? As the days passed, the situation with the lake access became more than just a neighborhood squabble, turned into a full-blown conflict that affected everyone around. Some neighbors quietly supported me, sharing their own frustrations about how the HOA president had been making questionable calls for months. Others stayed silent, afraid to get involved, or worried about what siding with me might mean for their own property or standing in the community. Meanwhile, the HOA president seemed more determined than ever to hold on to her power. She started sending out official letters claiming the lake access was private property and that anyone trying to use it without permission could face penalties. It felt like she was trying to rewrite the rules to fit her agenda, even though many of us knew that wasn't how things were supposed to work. At HOA meetings, tensions skyrocketed. The president's boyfriend showed up more often, sometimes standing guard by the locked gate, making it clear they weren't backing down. I found myself in a strange position, caught between wanting to protect my rights and trying to avoid a legal battle that could drag on for months or years. The spiked gate I built became a symbol for both sides. To me, it was protection. To them, it was a challenge, almost like a provocation. The local cops were stuck in the middle, responding to calls but unsure where the line really was. Adding to the mix, some neighbors started talking about forming a petition to change the HOA leadership or even revisit the neighborhood bylaws. That gave me a sliver of hope, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. Old alliances ran deep, and the president had years of influence built up. What nobody expected was how personal this would get. It wasn't just about a gate or lake access anymore. It was about respect, community, and standing up when you feel pushed aside. The question hanging over us all was whether this conflict would tear the neighborhood apart or finally bring everyone together. But one thing was clear: the next moves would decide everything, and the stakes had never been higher. As the days turned into weeks, the tension around the lake access grew thicker, like a storm about to break. The once friendly neighborhood started feeling cold and divided. I could sense eyes watching every move I made near the gate, whispers following me when I walked by. The HOA president seemed to be doubling down, bringing more security cameras and even hiring a private patrol to monitor the area. It was clear she wasn't willing to back down, and neither was I one evening. I got a call from a neighbor who said she saw the president and her boyfriend discussing something in hushed tones near the gate, looking frustrated but determined. It was obvious they were planning their next move. Meanwhile, the local cops kept coming around more often, usually after complaints from the president or her boyfriend. Every time they showed up, I tried to stay calm, but inside, I felt my patience slipping. The community meetings had turned into battlegrounds. Neighbors who were once close now avoided each other, and conversations often ended in heated arguments. Some people started taking sides openly, while others wished the whole thing would just disappear. I found myself caught in the middle, trying to hold on to my right to the lake and keep my neighbors from tearing apart. One night, as I stood by the gate, I noticed something unusual: a shadow moving just beyond the fence, like someone testing the waters, waiting for the right moment to act. My heart pounded. Was this the moment when everything would explode? The uncertainty was unbearable. The spiked gate, which I built to protect what's mine, suddenly felt like a fragile line between peace and chaos. The tension was electric, every day bringing new challenges and threats, but also unexpected support from those who believed in fairness. I knew the next move, whether mine or theirs, would change everything. But what would it be? And how far were they willing to go to take back control? The stage was set, and the biggest confrontation was just around the corner. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more intense, something happened that changed the whole game. One morning, I woke up to find a letter slipped under my door. It wasn't from the HOA or the police. It was from a lawyer representing a group of neighbors. The letter claimed that several homeowners were actually backing the HOA president's decision to restrict the lake access, saying it was for community safety and liability reasons. That was the last thing I expected, because most people I talked to were quietly on my side. Now it seemed like the conflict wasn't just between me and the HOA president anymore. It was dividing the entire neighborhood in a way I hadn't seen coming. The twist shook me. It felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. Suddenly, the fight wasn't just about one person's power grab. It was about a bigger struggle over control, community rights, and trust. The lawyer's letter threatened possible legal action if I didn't remove the spiked gate immediately, calling it a hazard. But I knew removing it meant giving up on protecting my access and standing down to the HOA. President's unfair move. Around the same time, rumors started swirling that the HOA president had been using her influence to get certain neighbors to officially change the bylaws changes that would legally support her claim over the lake access. The whole neighborhood was caught in a whirlwind of accusations, secret meetings, and mounting mistrust. Some neighbors who had been quiet before were now stepping forward, either supporting the president's plans or rallying behind me. I realized this wasn't just a simple dispute anymore. It had become a full-scale battle over who really had a voice in our community. The cops were still coming, the gate was still standing, and every day felt like walking a tightrope. No one knew what the next move would be, and that uncertainty was crushing. The stakes were higher than ever, and the lines between friend and foe were starting to blur. The whole neighborhood was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. So was I. The day everything came to a head started like any other, but I could feel the tension thick in the air. Word had spread that a special HOA meeting was called to address the lake access once and for all. The whole neighborhood showed up, some ready to support the president's claim, others standing with me, and a few who just wanted peace. The room was packed, voices raised, emotions running high. When it was my turn to speak, I laid out everything: the history of the lake access, the unfair way it had been taken, the bylaws the president was ignoring, and the risks her new rules posed to the community's trust. For a moment, it seemed like the tide might turn. A few board members looked uneasy, and some neighbors nodded quietly. But then the president stood up and dropped a bombshell. She revealed that the so-called lawyer's letter was actually forged by her boyfriend, who had hoped to intimidate me and rally the neighborhood behind them. The whole letter was a fake, a desperate move to manipulate the community and cover up their real plan: to privatize the lake access permanently for personal gain. That revelation shocked everyone. The room fell silent, then erupted into angry voices and calls for accountability. The HOA president tried to defend herself, but it was clear her credibility was shattered. Many neighbors who had felt unsure before now voiced support for me, demanding the lake access be restored and the bylaws respected. In the end, the HOA board voted to revoke the president's powers regarding the lake, and the gate remained as a protective barrier, but now officially recognized and supported by the community. It felt like justice, but the fight had taken its toll. Just when I thought it was over, I received a message late that night. The HOA president was quietly moving to sell a large portion of the lakefront property to a private developer, something no one saw coming. The battle might have been won, but the war for our neighborhood's future was far from over. After the meeting, things slowly started to calm down, but the relief was mixed with caution. The community had come together to stand up against unfair control of our lake access, proving that when neighbors unite, they can push back against those who try to take advantage. The spiked gate, once a symbol of conflict, became a symbol of resilience and protection for what truly belonged to all of us. It was clear that no one person should have the power to make decisions that affect the entire neighborhood. We began working on updating the HOA rules together, involving more voices in the process to prevent anyone from abusing their position again. Many neighbors who had been quiet before found their courage, realizing that standing up for fairness benefits everyone. I also stayed in close contact with the local authorities to ensure any future disputes would be handled with transparency and respect. As for the president, after her deceit was exposed, she stepped down quietly, and the community voted in new leadership focused on openness and fairness. But the message was clear: power must be checked, and everyone deserves a voice. The unexpected news about the potential sale of the lakefront property was a reminder that vigilance never stops. The community rallied again, organizing meetings and legal advice to protect our shared space from private development. This ongoing fight reminded us all that owning a home isn't just about property. It's about being part of a community that looks out for each other. Looking back, this experience taught me how important it is to stand firm when faced with injustice. Even when the odds feel stacked against you, it's about protecting your rights, yes, but also about protecting the spirit of the neighborhood. The lake is still there, open to all, and so is the hope that we can build a better, stronger community together.